Who hates the Philadelphia Eagles? Well, I can tell you one thing. Vikings fans certainly don't like them and how their fan base acts towards us, especially throwing beer cans full at children in the 2017 NFC Championship game. But we have a game with them tomorrow night. And with me tonight is going to be Devin Jackson of the Philadelphia Inquirer. You may know him from previous appearances on the show. Well, he helps cover the team for the paper, and he is here to give us the lowdown on everything Philadelphia Eagles as the Minnesota Vikings try to prevent their first 0-2 start since 2020. Welcome to the Real Forno Show.
Welcome to the Real Forno Show, hosted by Tyler Forness, the managing editor of USA Today's Vikings Wire, writer for the College Football Network, publisher of Substack Run In Shooter, host of The Good, The Bad, and The Hungry on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, as well as a founding member of Vikings First and
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Forno Show. I'm your host, Tyler Forness. And you know what? He's here, and he's down in the bottom right corner. His name is producer Dave, and just off to my left. Oh, you know what? I got the point wrong. This point, he is Devin Jackson of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Devin, always great to talk to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Tyler. Thanks for having me on once again, and looking forward to previewing this Thursday night football matchup. Obviously, a rematch of last year's game that was a Monday night game, I believe, and
Yep.
both teams, I would say, looked a lot different than what they did opening week of last year. So it'll be interesting to talk a little bit about it, but glad to be here, and like I said, glad to be back on.
One of the things that's really intriguing about last year's team versus this year's team is technically they're running the same scheme, but how Jonathan Gannon and Sean Desai run the Vic Fangio style defense, they don't exactly run it the same. And I'm very curious to see how much Pete Carroll influence that Desai picked up last year while being an assistant with the Seattle Seahawks, because they tried to do a little hybrid where they were running Fangio stuff and Pete Carroll being obsessed with cover three and middle of the field coverage with like a single high safety. I'm very intrigued to see how that will manifest itself. Do you think that we're gonna see a true Fangio style defense, or are we gonna be seeing a lot of that kind of cover one, cover three influence?
I would say more cover one, cover three influence. And really, I think you might see a little bit more cover three, especially tomorrow night. Obviously, the Eagles are going to be missing a few key guys in the secondary that will kind of affect what they do. Specifically, James Bradbury. I think they would have liked to do a little bit more cover one, just in general. But sorry, my dogs are in the background. Probably could hear that.
That was Eclair.
Yeah.
I have her downstairs to try and keep the dogs separate so I don't go absolutely ballistic during the show. And I'm glad to know that's not Eclair. Hopefully yours is doing okay.
Yeah. Just a little excited. But just going back to my thought, James Bradbury being out, I think really affects what they want to do. Obviously got Justin Jefferson coming in the building, and Darius Slay will see a lot of time on him, but you would have liked to see Bradbury kind of, take the number two guy, whether it be Addison or Osborne for the Vikings. But I think they're going to do a little bit more cover three to not expose Josh Joe, who will likely fill in for Bradbury to the cover one matchups.
Yeah, and I think that's a really interesting point because of no Bradbury. That's going to leave stuff open on the other side. And at safety, Reed Blankenship has a rib injury that may keep him out, and you may have to see rookie Sidney Brown or veteran Terrell Edmonds. Edmonds isn't exactly what you call a super high caliber player at the position, and Sidney Brown, not really known for his coverage skills. He's more known as an old school strong safety where he's going to come in the box and he's just going to thump you. So those elements are very intriguing as the Vikings look to potentially stretch the field. But in trying to stretch the field, the Eagles have one of the best defensive lines in football, and they have continuously for whether right or wrong, invested in that defensive line. And they did so again this year by drafting Jalen Carter at 9th overall and then Nolan Smith at 31st. Or no, it was 30th because the Miami Dolphins, they had their pick stripped. It's a very interesting group of players. You have Hassan Reddick there, Josh Sweat, Jordan Davis, who was a first-round pick last year. So their last three first-round picks that they've used have been on defensive linemen from Georgia. And then they sent one last year to the Tennessee Titans for A.J. Brown. But that defensive line, being able to get home with 4 rushers, which is a really big caveat of the Vic Fangio defense, could really limit them from being able to take advantage of those corners. So my big question to you is, will it even matter that the corners are quote unquote subpar based on what we've seen from previous Eagles teams?
I would say yes and no. And I think the caveat is kind of the revolving door at linebacker. They N'Kobe Dean's going to be out for a little bit now. So they're going to have a few guys kind of rotate in and kind of step in. And he was expected to be kind of that guy, the leader. And before he went out of the game against New England, he was having an excellent performance, doing a really nice job defending the run. So I think, kind of your point is a little bit of caveat. Obviously, having that pass rush is nice. Having that nice stable of rotation and talent along that defensive line is great. But also when you think about what the Vikings are probably going to throw at them, they're probably going to have a lot of, I don't want to say max protect, but a lot of 6-7 man protection to make sure Kirk Cousins can throw the football. And that's going to leave them susceptible in the secondary specifically. And look, the Patriots did a nice job, especially in that second half, being able to get the ball quickly out of Mac Jones' hands and distributing to all the weapons. And really I think one of the biggest holes in the Eagles defense is the middle of that defense and at the second and third levels. Reed Blankenship is also going to be out tomorrow night as well. And he's been a big part of that safety tandem that they have with him and Terrell Edmonds. So I think it's good. You're going to see the Vikings try and attack the middle of the field. And the Patriots did a really good job of doing that, whether it be slants, posts, dig routes. And I think because of kind of having linebackers in there that are not exactly I don't want to say Fred Warner types, but not as disruptive as you would like a second level defender in the modern NFL to be. I think that's where there's going to be some holes in the Eagles defense for the Vikings to attack, and I would expect them to do so. With injuries in the secondary and linebacker room for the Eagles.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, especially with the advent of the Vikings trying to utilize 12 personnel, which the numbers just came out with Sports Info Solutions. I need to go check that out as far as what the splits were, but they were really effective in throwing both 11 personnel and also throwing out of 12 and being able to take advantage of those linebackers. Will be really interesting to see how they can do so. But as much as linebackers matter in this sense, how much will it really matter? Because the Eagles have never cared about linebacker. They got Jeremiah Trotter back in the early to mid aughts, and after that, they just said, screw the position. We don't need it. And that's pretty much how they've rolled for the better part of the last decade. So will it actually matter? Or will we just see a guy like Sidney Brown in dime situations just end up being that linebacker and they do like a 407 look and just be like, we're fine?
I mean, that's what they brought him in for. Honestly, they brought him in to have that presence in the run game, to defend tight ends, and just kind of be that, I don't want to say chess piece, but kind of that piece where you can kind of have that hybrid position. And look, they're in a pinch tomorrow night. So I would expect to see a lot of Sidney Brown, a lot of him being moved around the formations, be inserted into the box to kind of stop the run, especially what the Vikings can bring to the table in the run game. And just being that extra set of body to be at the line of scrimmage. Because look, me and you both watched Sidney Brown through the draft process, saw him at the Senior Bowl, excellent athlete, able to go sideline to sideline. But the biggest thing for him was the open field tackling and not being as strong backpedaling as opposed to coming forward. So I would expect them not to put him in a lot of positions to be deep in coverage, but more so near and around the line of scrimmage, and guarding tight ends as well. That's going to be a key aspect of slowing down the Vikings attack. I know they're going to try and utilize their tight ends, especially with what the Eagles have at linebacker tomorrow night, and having Reed Blankenship out, who was kind of that do it all type of guy in the safety room. So I think Sidney Brown's going to play a huge impact, both in the running game and in the short and intermediate passing game for the Vikings.
Yeah, and I think the addition of Sidney Brown to that defense long term is going to be really nice. I'm very intrigued to see what that manifests itself in week 2 of his rookie season, because I didn't think he was all that great, especially in coverage. But man, could that guy chase something down and annihilate you? But I do want to just point out, we need our good friend Mike is in the comments saying that to go 0-4-7. I think we need to tell him that in the United States, nobody does 0-4-7 looks, Mike. That's just asking for you to just get railroaded in the running game. So maybe you can do that in Canada, but you can't do that here.
Shout out to Mike for that. But yeah, it's gonna be. I think you're gonna see a lot of different looks from the Eagles defensively this Sunday, and that's really what they wanted to get to. They didn't want to get that predictable look that they gave last year and throughout the season, that teams knew what they were going to run. Not a lot of disguising, but now you can really move those athletes around and get really tricky in those pass rush situations. Milton Williams had a good game. Jalen Carter, obviously, Jordan Davis. I mean, the list goes on and on. So it's you're certainly going to see a lot of different looks in trying to counter what the Vikings like to do. It's going to be a really nice chess match between Kevin O'Connell and Sean Desai for sure.
Oh yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Let's talk about O'Connell. We had apparently I missed the reference in 0-4-7. Whatever. I'm 33 years old and go Oilers, baby. So let's talk about O'Connell, how he likes to utilize some of those concepts. And he really likes to attack the intermediate levels of the field, just like Sean McVay does. A lot of choice routes, a lot of digs, and being able to take advantage of like that middle of the field, not necessarily between the hashes, but just outside of them. And that's really where he likes, that's his bread and butter. And the difficulty about some of those concepts is they take a while to develop and come open. This defensive line, if we remember anything from last year, they took the Vikings out to lunch and stuck them with a $10,000 bill like it was some rookie hazing gimmick. It was not good. It was brutal. And it's really hard for me to see a situation where that's going to improve too much, especially Fletcher Cox is, I believe, questionable for the game. He's also has a rib injury. A lot of rib injuries on this team. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe they just completely forgot to wear any kind of padding there, and it just got a nice little rocky punch to it. But there's a lot of depth in this defensive line that can rotate in and out and be able to put pressure on the quarterback. How is Kevin O'Connell really gonna have to switch to a quick game philosophy here, even though it makes sense to run a lot of those daggers, digs, crossers to be able to take advantage of those linebackers?
I would say yes, but being able to run the football is going to be the most important part to really loosen up the pass rush. And establishing the run is going to be incredibly important to be able to open play action as well. So I think quick game has got to be a part of what they do. They have to be able to attack Josh Jobe. And look, Jobe is a really good talent, but he's getting his first true start at outside corner. So I would expect them to attack him early to just test him to see, is he going to be jumping things? Is he going to be able to make tackles in the open field? Like, I think that's really what you're going to see early on. Attack Joe, see what he's about. Obviously, get Jefferson involved early on, and the quick game is an easy way to do that. But eventually, you're going to have to do the intermediate in those long developing plays, and to be able to set those up, they got to be able to take pressure off of the offensive line, and like I said, they're gonna probably have to run 6 and 7 man protections. So that may mean there's running backs staying in and not going out on routes. Tight ends may need to chip. So you're gonna see a lot of those types of acts to try and kind of dissuade or slow down the Eagles pass rush. And I think the big part in that is not getting those third and long situations. That's why on early downs they really have to succeed in moving the ball, getting the ball out quickly, and moving it efficiently. And that's the biggest Achilles heel for the Eagles, is that if teams are able to get in those third and manageable, okay, they can't just pin their ears back and rush on 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 4. They can be susceptible to running back draw, some play action. It really opens up your playbook. And I think that's what is going to be the chess match. Okay, say it's like 2nd and 8, do you take a shot here? Do you continue to try and run the football and establish a line of scrimmage? Do you do quick game to get a third and manageable? So I think those first and second down plays are going to be key in this game to see if that intermediate and deep shot passing game is open, but really start with what they can do on early downs and mixing it up. You got to run those screens to keep them honest. And the Patriots spammed the hell out of screens on Sunday. They ran so many screens to kind of slow that down. But I would say they got to be able to control the line of scrimmage. Starts with the run game, and quick game, and really test to see missing pieces that the Eagles have in their secondary, how well they can hold up.
Yeah, I think the addition of the play action is going to be really, really important. One thing that was really important in that first matchup, Devin, and we're talking back at the beginning of 2022, Darius Slay looked like a bronze god against Justin Jefferson, picked off Kirk Cousins 2 times, and was consistently denying him in coverage. And just quite frankly, after that first half, he only caught 6 for 49, but he locked him down. And going forward, you have James Bradbury not able to play, which is a really big loss. And Jordan Addison is a much better version of current day Adam Thielen. They could really exploit some of those other corners, but is Darius Slay in a position where they're going to ask him to try and lock down Jefferson again? And are they going to be able to give him any kind of help, or is he just going to be on an island because of those other injuries?
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. And I think it really is going to be interesting to see. But I would think they almost have to kind of put him on an island because, look, you have Darius Slay, obviously the season things of like, okay, we're going to let him go. Then we end up bringing him back. Um, this is what they brought him back for. These big matchups to guard some of the best receivers in the NFC and the NFL in general. Um, Now, do I think is an effective tactic? Probably not, which is why they're probably going to mix in some safety help, and try to build in those coverages, some sort of help so he's not just one on one the entire game. But I would expect the majority of the game he's going to follow him. He's going to try and lock him down because much as help you want to give him over the top, just what Jefferson's able to do. I mean, he's going to be on the island, on the other, or Josh Jobe is going to be on the island, guarding the wide receiver 2 and 3 of the Vikings, and I really think they're going to focus more of their attention on making sure that he needs to be able to do his job effectively, which is why I think you might see a little bit more zone coverage versus those man looks. Um, and if they do go man, I expect them to bring pressure to try and speed up Kirk Cousins to make sure that he doesn't have 4 seconds to throw. So that's why I say it's going to be a chess match. But overall, I think there's not going to be a lot of help given to Darius Slay when up against Justin Jefferson.
Well, if it's anything like the battles that Jefferson has had against Jair Alexander, he's bound to just absolutely own him for almost 200 yards and a couple tutties, like happened last year against Jair Alexander in week 1. People don't forget. Let me tell you. Let's transition to the other side of the ball, Devin, because I'm really intrigued about this Eagles offense. And Jalen Hurts had a tremendous season. You could argue an MVP type season. I'm still hesitant on Hurts because I just don't think that there's enough arm talent there for him to truly be an elite quarterback. And his processing skills are really good early on, but once you get past like that first and second read, he is not an elite processor either, but he's such an anomaly that he has continued to grow. every single year. And he's been in the national spotlight since his freshman season at Alabama in 2016, I believe, when he could barely throw a football and he led him to a national championship. When you look at everything encompassing with Jalen Hurts, like, are we in a position where he's actually going to be able to take that next leap to where he's talked about as maybe a top 5 quarterback, but very rarely put outside the top 10, to a consensus top 5 guy because of everything that he's able to do? Or is he just going to have to be propped up a little bit by scheme more than some of these other top guys?
I think it's a little bit of both. Look, I agree with you. I don't think he has the top end arm talent as some of the top guys. Um, but you did mention like every season he grew and take a step forward. Um, and I think he's in line to do so again. But they have a new play caller as well. With Brian Johnson. So I think that's where things might get a little bit more interesting. Um, Obviously they want him to protect himself a little bit more. Had the shoulder injury at the end of the season last year, and really affected him down the stretch of the season. Um, but I think overall, when you look at Jalen Hurts' body of work, first of all, he has the weapons to take the next step. Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are incredible. Dallas Guard didn't even really get involved in the Week 1 game, which I think is, potentially scary for opposing defenses, because like once he gets involved, you're really going to have a difficult time stopping all 3 guys. So I think with him, you're going to see him continue to take incremental steps, and he's done so every year of his career, not just college but NFL as well. But I think they're going to have to start letting him win consistently, passing the ball. Uh, the running game is a big part of his game as well. But for his longevity, I think he's going to need to really, I don't want to say be handed the keys, because they've tailored the offense around him and his skill set,
Mhm.
but they're going to have to um, really hand over the passing game keys to him and allow him to dissect defenses. And I think that's what's going to be the thing I want to see next is like, all right, we know you can make all the throws that you need to make. You can put the ball in position for your athletes to do the work for you. And obviously, he had a tremendous Super Bowl performance as well, throwing to tight windows, leading his receivers. So now it's going to be about, okay, 3rd and 7. We got to get away from the quarterback draw. We got to get away from the RPO action, and you just got to let him be a drop back passer and let him win with the guys he has on the outside. So I think that's going to be his next step is, okay, we know what you can do. We know what your strengths are. But defense are going to load up on the run game and have a QB spy and make him work from the pocket and chase him when he goes out of the pocket. And the Patriots showed, I won't say the blueprint, but they showed how they can kind of derail what he does best, which is, moving the football and working outside of structure. And we're gonna need to see more Jalen Hurts Super Bowl performance is what I'm getting at. What he did from inside the pocket, making the tight window throws, consistently winning on 3rd downs with his arm. And I think that's when you're really going to see him potentially take that next step into the undoubtedly top 5 area. But until that happens, I think he's going to be in that top 10, top 12 discussion where the talent is there, what he does as a runner and passer is there, but does he have the answers to everything the defenses throw at him, and I don't think he has them right now.
Yeah, and I'm wondering how he's going to be able to fully have that answer, because he can throw a 60-yard goal ball. Everybody in the NFL can throw a 60-yard goal ball, but can he deliver a 15-yard out route with a lot of velocity? And the answer is no. And I'm that's kind of why I brought the whole question up, just because I don't think there's quite enough for him to truly be considered in that elite echelon. And he's not a guy like Tua, where Tua is just an absolutely elite processor and he can just anticipate really, really well. And that's kind of his superpower. One of the reasons why he was able to usurp Jalen Hurts as the starting quarterback at Alabama. But he gives you that extra element in the running game. And we'll kind of transition here to that running game, where the Vikings defense was really good against the Buccaneers. 90 yards in the first half, only 242 yards overall. That would have been the least amount of yards allowed in the entirety of the 2022 season. The only game that was close was against the Chicago Bears at 259, and that was week 18. It's basically a preseason game. So this defense looks much improved. Rashad White couldn't get anything going on the ground, and the longest runs came from Baker Mayfield on scrambles. So this rushing attack is going to be a lot different because they're going to do a lot of RPO stuff. They're going to run a lot of it from the shotgun because it's Jalen Hurts, and you want to be able to have that as a visible threat. So what kinds of things are they going to be able to bring to the game plan here today for the Vikings to be able to stop them? I'm very fascinated by the run game matchup here.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I mean, Eagles essentially have everybody back from last year except for the right guard position. And Cam Jurgens had a up and down game against the Patriots. There were moments, especially in the run game, especially early in the game too, where he looked good pulling, running the counter action, running power, running zone read, um, those concepts. But as the game wore on, they just couldn't quite move the Patriot off the line of scrimmage. They had a built-in guy to watch Jalen Hurts on those quarterback runs. The Eagles can throw so much at you in the run game, whether it's a quarterback run, whether it's the quarterback draw, all the different types of run plays, and they have a damn good offensive line to run behind. But okay, you don't have Kenny Gainwell. He was kind of your top guy this past week against the Patriots. He's out of the game. All right, so now you have Boston Scott, DeAndre Swift, and potentially Rashad Penny, who was inactive on Sunday. All right, who is going to take the bulk of the carries? I don't know. DeAndre Swift really hasn't been the workhorse guy, running the football in his career, in his short NFL career. Rashad Penny, obviously, he's had splashy games with Seattle, but could never stay healthy. And then Boston Scott is kind of that utility guy, kind of change of pace guy. So you have kind of three backs right now that are kind of finding their footing exactly and who's going to be the guy. And I think that makes it a little bit difficult to game plan against because you don't know exactly who's going to be running what in terms of what style of run going to go with, what are they most comfortable with. Swift can run in between tackles, can run outside the tackles, and do a little bit of everything. And I expect him to get a good portion of the carries, but they throw so much at you, and then they on top they have the RPO, which should kind of complicate things as well. You look to stop the run and then they hit you with the RPO. So I think it's gonna be the Eagles are gonna continue to go back to the run game as the Vikings can prove whether or not they can slow it down. And it's a big part of their offense as well. And I talked about what the Vikings want to do into getting to third and manageable situations. So do the Eagles. I mean, most teams in the NFL do, but they specifically rely on that running game to get into third and manageable situations to open up some of the other passing game elements that they bring to the table. So I think it's going to be fascinating to see, okay, not only can they run the football, number one, and two, are those new additions going to be able to, not outside of Boston Scott, he's been with the Eagles for a couple years now, but with Swift and potentially with Penny, are they going to be able to have that feel of knowing where to cut off some of the offensive linemen? Are they going to run behind Kelsey, Dickerson, and Mailata on the left side? Are they going to try to get Jurgens some more confidence in reaching to the second and third levels of the defense? So I think it's going to be interesting to see what kind of rhythm they get into. Because if the Eagles get into a nice rhythm moving the, that's when you're really going to see a lot of things being thrown at them, RPO wise, play action wise, and Jalen Hurts is going to get some easy reads. But if they can't run the football, I think you're going to see another game where they're basically going to tell Jalen, like, look, you're going to have to win by attacking, the secondary, the Vikings secondary. So a lot of question marks for the Eagles early on. Gainwell was pretty much the sole guy on last Sunday, and now they don't have him. So who it's kind of next man up, and you have some good talent to do so, but they haven't really played with this Eagles offensive line. So I'm a little bit worried by what they're going to throw run game wise, and if it's going to be effective.
Yeah, and I think one of the intriguing parts about the run game, and as there's some conversation in the chat, and want to thank everybody for joining us here live here tonight about the run game and that RPO action, is you have that pass option. And the Eagles do have a couple really talented players in this at wide receiver. You obviously have AJ Brown, who's arguably a top 5 receiver, if not like a top 3. Depending on kind of how you rank guys like Devontae Adams still at this point, because he's kind of on the downturn of his career, but he's still really, really, really good. And then Devonta Smith, who might be the least talked about really good wide receiver in football because he got overshadowed by AJ Brown and the emergence of Jalen Hurts last year. So with these two guys, you obviously have AJ Brown, who's going to get the majority of the focus. But Devonta Smith is an incredible complement because they are such different football players. How are the Eagles utilizing these two guys, and how can they try and make Jalen Hurts' life a little bit easier?
Yeah, so with moving, they can move around. First of all, they can move around Devontae Smith and
Mhm.
utilize him not on the outside but in the slot as well. Um, they will put him in a backfield in kind of jet motion, and even use him sometimes as a check down option in a two back look, motion him out to the right or left. So they have no problem moving around Devontae Smith specifically. AJ Brown, they want him, you know, kind of they move him around quite a bit as well, but they want him in those one-on-one situations. So that's why they move around Devontae Smith to kind of occupy the safeties in the slot sometimes, occupy the other side of the field at times. Um, but with them, you want them to they can run essentially any route. Obviously, I think AJ Brown is most effective in you get him the ball in space, let him work, and that's where the RPOs come in. The RPO slant, the RPO quick hitch, RPO dig route, really getting him working over the middle of the field is where he does best, and obviously the go balls are nice, the posts as well. But that's what AJ Brown does best. Devontae Smith, they run screens with him. They run the short intermediate routes over the middle of the field as well with him. They really like to work the boundary with Devontae Smith as well. So if there's one on one, into the boundary and you want a quick completion, he can do so and get that quickly. I would say Devontae is more of a quicker separator, in man coverage than AJ Brown is. Brown is more so a guy that just is physical at the catch point, doesn't mind if a DB is back, and will go up and make the tough catches. And so will
Mhm.
Devontae Smith, but Smith is more of a elusive, kind of exquisite route runner that does well really separating, at the point of attack and down the field as well. So they're kind of a yin and yang mix, which makes them so dynamic. They where one isn't known for, the other is. So they kind of play off each other well, and that's why you get the run game going and you start to get those play action and getting them
Mhm.
the ball out in space. That's when you can really see them at their best. So that's kind of how I see it and how they like to use those guys. Either one can go up and some occasionally Jalen Hurts will just throw the ball up and let one of them make a play. And he's done that quite a bit. But I think with Devontae, you're going to see him moved around quite a bit, kind of like how the Vikings like to move around Justin Jefferson, get him in different looks. Devontae Smith is kind of that guy for them to really open up the offense and open up the other weapons they have on the field.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how the Vikings secondary, which has been mostly rebuilt over the last 2 seasons, that nobody in the cornerback room was on this team 2 years ago. Byron Murphy, obviously the biggest addition this past offseason, 2-year deal max of $22 million. And you have multiple draft picks, a second round pick in Andrew Booth Jr., who's not playing right now, which is very frustrating on multiple levels. Mekhi Blackman, a 3rd round pick this year, and Caleb Evans is a starter as a 4th round pick in 2022. And then you have Najee Thompson, who's a special teams maven, who we aren't even counting as a cornerback. But this safety room, Devin, has 6 safeties in it. 6. All of them are good. All of them deserve a roster spot. It's just one of the more wild things when you talk about roster construction, because safety is not necessarily a position of strength. But Brian Flores likes to utilize these guys, and Josh Metellus is getting a lot of run as a rover, as an overhang, as a hybrid linebacker. Is that going to be an issue going up against this Eagles defense, not having a lot of beef at the linebacker position, especially when we're talking about the running game? Or is that quickness element going to be something that is going to maximize the Vikings defense?
I would say in the quarterback run situations, not having as much beef is going to be helpful. But if the Eagles are just running straight at you, not having that's imposing second level presence is going to really hurt. So in ways, I would say, like, if you're talking about like runs on the perimeter, quarterback runs, quarterback draw, you need to be athletes in space to tackle Jalen Hurts, and the Patriots show that ability, and that's why they were able to really keep him quiet outside of a few scrambles and a few big runs by Hurts. But in terms of just straight at him zone power counter, that might be a struggle for the Vikings, and they may have to kind of, I don't want to say stack the box, but put a few more bodies in the box to slow that down. And that's kind of the risk you run with the Eagles. You try to load up on the box. That's when you get those one-on-one situations with AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, and you don't want to be in that type of island where basically you have to stop in one-on-one coverage. So I think it's really gonna. That's why I say it's gonna, kind of going to what I said at the top, was gonna be a chess match, not even all, for the Vikings offense versus the Eagles defense, but vice versa. Are the Vikings going to be able to stop the runs right up the middle or in between the tackles? And that's going to be the key to this game, because then if they can't, okay, guess what? We're going to throw quarterback runs at you. We're going to throw zone RPO. That's when things start to get stacked on top of each other. And then all of a sudden you have too much to minimize. But if they can do a nice job, on relatively light boxes and have Metellus play that rover position, and he can make plays inside the box, then you're in a good position defensively, because then you're gonna put the Eagles in 3rd and long situations where you want them to be. So I think that's kind of going to be the key to that game, key to the run game specifically. If you can stop what they do in between the tackles, and even out on the perimeter, I think that you'll have a good chance to slowing down this offense. But if they can run anything they want, that's when you can get into a long night, and they're going to play, ball possession, and really minimize what you can do offensively. And that's when they can pin their ears back and get after you defensively.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how those run fits are going to happen, especially with the development of Ivan Pace Jr., who we had conversations about. Dude is he's basically built like a Goomba, and shout out JP Acosta, and he's just able to do a lot of really impressive things on the field. And he got 46 snaps in the debut out of 64, nearly 75% of the snaps. So how they end up fitting that is going to be interesting. Last question for you, Devin, then I want to get a score prediction from you before we head out of town. This offensive line for the Eagles has been lauded as really, really good, but you have aging players like Jason Kelce and Lane Johnson. Are they at a point where we're actually going to start seeing some decline from them and players that the Vikings might be able to take advantage of more than in years past? Or is that just not an issue for both of these guys as long as they're healthy, which has always been a really important element for these two because they've been oft injured?
For Kelsey, he just hasn't aged, man. um, I feel like watching him, like every play in that Patriots game, he was in a right spot. Didn't seem like he got beating people to the spot. So with Kelly, I don't really see a decline. Lane Johnson, I can see a little bit. I wouldn't say it's drastic. I wouldn't say he's going to fall off and not be one of the top tackles because I still think he's one of the top tackles in the NFL. But he got beat a few times against the Patriots. You know, Keon White was able to get him. Matthew Judon, they were able to win at the line of scrimmage, and obviously those are great pass rushers. Even Josh Uche, you know, was able to do so. So I think with Lane, you see a little bit of the age factoring in. He had the injury last year that kept him out last few weeks, and he basically played through injury through the playoffs and Super Bowl. Um, and look, he's getting towards the end of his career, and so is Kelsey. Kelsey could be his last season, along with Lane Johnson, who's probably has one or two more left. I think you're going to see a little bit of decline for Lane. Not necessarily you can't keep him one-on-one, but I think there are going to be times he just beat the season. So I think obviously you want to attack some of those other guys like Cam Jurgens is going to be a big focal point, attacking him, see if he can hold up. Dickerson is great, but you know he can be beat. Mailata is great, same thing. So I think with Kelsey and Johnson, you're going to see continued high level play, but I do think Johnson is going to dip off maybe a tiny bit to not where he previously was the last couple of years, barely allowing a sack. I would expect him to give up a few sacks this year.
And Danielle Hunter's right there, being able to potentially take advantage. Hopefully, we get Marcus Davenport as well. Devin, you know I greatly appreciate your time and your friendship. I got to ask you about a score prediction though, because this is a really interesting one. My score prediction comes out tomorrow for the Vikings Wire, so I'm not going to share it here. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna need you to go and read because we've got score predictions from the entire Vikings Wire staff, including the Eagles Wire managing editor Glenn Irby, who throws his prediction in there as well. How do you see this game going down, Devin?
I think it's a tight one. I think the Eagles offense is still finding their way. I think there's still going to be some bumps in the road, especially with some of the injuries they have and defensively. But I see this game going under its total, and I do not see the Eagles covering. I see a 23-20 finish. I do have the Eagles winning, though, but I think it'll be 23-20 is my final score prediction.
23-20 is not bad, and it is a 6.5 point spread right now on DraftKings. But if you take the Eagles side, it is minus 105, so dang near even money. Where the Vikings it is plus 6.5 at minus 115, so a little worse. But if you think the Vikings are going to win, a plus 210 money line, real tasty if you have confidence in the purple and gold. Dave, do you have anything for Devin before we take off here today?
Oh, it's just good to see him. I'm glad he's back. I always like having Devin on for whatever reason. And hopefully tomorrow night goes.
The glasses are just so nice.
Hopefully for tomorrow night goes our way, but we'll see. But I always like having Devin on, especially when we get closer to draft season and all that other sort of stuff. But I'm happy to see you, brother.
Good to see you too as well, Dave. Thanks for always doing an awesome job and you know, helping Tyler out do this awesome show. But yeah, I'm glad to, like I said, I'm always happy to come on. This makes it even better, you know, obviously with the Eagles and Vikings play. But we both know drafting is where my heart lies. So I'm looking forward to that.
There's a good quarterback class this year. It's got us all excited. But first, the Vikings need to win tomorrow night.
Yes, they do. And before we end up taking off, Devin, where can the people find you and your work? I know I kind of gave a little bit of away earlier, but I know you do a little bit more than that as well.
Yeah, so real D_Jackson on X, Twitter, for whatever reason. And then on the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is theinquirer.com. Going to be covering the draft once again this year. So looking forward to doing that for the Inquirer. But right now, mostly focus on betting and some of the NFL and college betting. But once the calendar turns to January, you can find all my work on theinquirer.com, mock drafts, maybe even rankings, Senior Bowl reports, all that. So stay tuned for that.
Absolutely. I can't wait for the Senior Bowl. Still hoping to be able to pull it off. We'll see with the 2 dogs now instead of 1. It makes it a little tougher, especially because Eclair's a little bit of a senior. She's been around the block a little bit. But thank you guys for joining. Thank you, Devin, as well. And we will be back tomorrow night at the 2-minute warning. I will hopefully jump on at some point, but I will not be there at the 2-minute warning because I have all my written stuff that I have to do. But if you can't catch me there, we will be talking about this game on the Real Forno Show, potentially with a special show. We don't know yet, but make sure you have those. Make sure you subscribe and have your notifications on. So anytime we go live, you know to jump in and check us out. And if you haven't subscribed, we ask that you do. We do a pretty good job over here and we have a lot of fun in doing so. And with that said, Dave, Vikings play a game tomorrow and it's a wonderful day.
It is, and you can catch me live on a member of Vikings First and SKOL's team, Justin Days, Purple and Gold for Days. We're going to do a live podcast or a live show prior to the game. Catch me there, and then, of course, live at the final 2-minute warning. Justin will join me, Tyler hopefully later, and we're going to have fun as the Vikings go on to go 1-1 on the season. What do we say, gentlemen?
SKOL Vikings.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell to get notifications. It helps us grow this community that we all love, our Minnesota Vikings. And on behalf of Tyler Forness and myself, Dave Stefano, thank you so dearly for watching The Real Forno Show. SKOL, everyone.